Hello, everyone. Welcome to Elevating Your Life. And oh, what a great show we have ahead for you today. I have an amazing guest to share with everyone. We have with us today Brian C. Holley. He is the author of What My Doctors Didn't Tell Me About Cancer. And he has been writing nonfiction for over 50 years, and for a few years worked as a freelance journalist for several leading computer magazines. Brian ran a communication skill training company with his wife for 12 years. Following that, he was an online course tutor for 5 colleges. He has been an active member of the Weobley and District Local History Society for 20 years and 10 years as chairman. In 2009, he was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and his left kidney was removed. Since then, he has had various other surgeries. And since 2015, he has had metastatic cancer in his lungs. And throughout this period, he has maintained symptom-free health largely through exercise, meditative practices, and diet. And he has intensified his regimen in 2022. And you're an amazing story. You are amazing, Brian. I want to say welcome so much.
Thank you, Paula.
Gosh.
Yeah, that sounds a very long time to me, and it is a long time.
And you writing this amazing book, giving such great perspectives. Well, first off, tell us, when did you first discover you had cancer, and what was that like? Share that with us, please.
Well, it was a rather strange event, actually, because I was making wine. I've got a nice large garage, and half of my garage I turned into a winery, and I was making 30 litres of Shiraz wine. And it was time to rack my wine off. Its first racking, and I hunted around for my siphon tube, and I couldn't find it anywhere. But eventually I found an oversized one, and I thought, well, this will do, get the job done a bit quicker. So I sucked away at the wine, and it came in a great rush, and I got a great big mouthful of wine. And I thought to myself, actually, this is too good to spit out. It's not bad. So I swallowed it down. Well, okay. The next morning, a very strange thing happened, because I got up to the loo and I peed pure Shiraz. I thought, that's strange. It's just gone straight through. And all day the same thing was happening. And by the next morning, I thought, hang on a minute, I didn't drink that much. Let's see what happens. So I went to see my doctor. And my doctor, when I told him the story, quite frankly, he laughed, which was quite reassuring, really. But then he said, well, it's probably a polyp. Most usually men of your age will get polyps. In fact, most men of my age get most things out of the sound of it. This is an old adage that comes out of doctors' mouths these days. But so I went to the doctor for tests, and discovered that there was something rather untoward going on. And very, very quickly, I was given an appointment with a specialist who told my wife and I that I'd got this rather huge cancer on my left kidney, and that I needed to have something done about it. And so, having spent a lot of time with me and explained all the details, he said, is there anything else you'd like to know? And I said, yes. When can you do it? And he said, well, I've booked you in for next Tuesday, okay? I thought, well, that's pretty urgent. The strange thing is, and this is why sometimes cancer can become a bit sneaky. I had a back problem in my lumbar area for something like 25 years or more. And it had been put down to a arthritic joint in the spine. It's always given me achiness, and the achiness has been getting a lot worse. And I just put it down to that spine. When I look back on it now and realize that since my kidney had been removed, I wasn't anywhere near as much pain as I had been. I thought, actually, there were other symptoms going there. So we have to watch out for all the aches and pains and not just assume that it's something ongoing. It may be something else altogether. So there I was, 2009, into hospital. Took me through the operation, took me into the intensive care unit. And on the second day of the intensive care unit, the doctor took one look at me. I was feeling pretty bright and chipper. He said, "What on earth is he doing in here?" So the next day, I was back on the ward, and within a very few days, I was out again. I had led a pretty fit life, really. I'd done a lot of cycling, a lot of walking. I'd never been an exercise fanatic, but I had done a considerable amount of exercise, and I think that helped considerably, laying a good foundation of fitness. So that was the beginning of a journey, which, of course, has now lasted for 15 years. I didn't expect that.
Yes, yes. So how did you proceed after having your kidney removed? And I believe you began like a journal, a diary.
Oh, that was a long time later. At first, I just got over the problem. Within a few months, I was getting back to normal again, and I thought, okay, problem removed. That's it. Very fortunately, of course, once you have cancer, the doctors do keep a close eye on you all the time. So I had regular checkups. And then in 2012, on one of the checkups, they discovered that their cancer had appeared in my adrenal gland. So I went through another procedure in another hospital and had that removed. And that was okay. I got through that, got through the other side, still feeling fit and well and active. And then 3 years later, the cancer was back in the what I call the kidney bed. I don't know what the doctors might call it, but where the kidney had been, it regrew. And we were considering what we might do about whether we should do anything about that, when 6 months later, another checkup revealed that I had metastatic cancer in my lungs. So I had little tumors all over my lungs. They weren't affecting me. It was very strange. I wasn't coughing, and I wasn't inhibited in any way. I was walking and acting and living as normal. And the doctor suggested that I should have chemotherapy at that stage. Well, I thought about this because when I investigated the suggested therapy that they were offering, there was certainly going to be a change in lifestyle. I would have fairly frequent sickness, diarrhea. My immune system would be reduced, and I would not feel well quite a lot of the time. I'd been on several forums where people had been using the same chemotherapy, and that was the kind of feedback that I was getting. Of course, everybody's different, and I think I need to emphasize that, Paula, because no two people respond to medication and treatment in the same way. So the way I responded to it may not be the way other people do. And in this instance, I thought, well, my life is going to be pretty dull. I'm not going to be able to do a lot of the things that I've wanted to do and what I can do. And I talked it over my darling wife, Liz, and said, well, look, I would rather have a shorter life and an active one than one where I'm going to be fairly debilitated at least some of the time. And I asked my oncologist, okay, well, how long am I going to be on this treatment? And this was the key factor. He said, well, for the rest of your life. Well, I was, 79? And I thought to myself, no, I don't think I'm going to. No, I wasn't as old as that. Sorry. This is 2015. So I was 76. And I thought, well, I've had a good life so far. I think I can manage a few more years yet. Let's just keep an eye on it and see what's happening. Well, in keeping an eye on it, I found that the cancers were actually growing very slowly. And I was still being active. I played guitar in a band. I did a lot of walking. We traveled quite a bit. And life was normal. But I was here living with cancer and no treatment. I was taking supplements, and one of the things that Liz got me into, and it was all down to her to start with, was that she began researching diet, etc. And we had always been on a reasonably good diet, but we cut right back on things like red meat. One of the things I discovered was that sugar was important to cut back on. Milk was important to cut back on. So we began to reduce things and go towards a plant-based diet. And that way we were able to live more healthily. I lost some weight, not very much, but I did lose some weight, got a bit trimmer. And life went on. I didn't know how long I would go. People talk about the 5-year threshold, that they reckon the measure of success of treatment or from diagnosis of cancer is about 5 years. And, if you get through that, then you can go on longer, perhaps, But I know lots of people who've been a lot more than 5 years. And certainly that's been the case for me. So I was in this situation where I was living an active life, still having cancer, seeing my oncologist every 3 or 6 months, and just keeping a watching brief.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that about the sugar, because so many times, and I think it's because doctors aren't trained in that. I mean, sugar is huge in how it affects cancer. Yes. Cancer feeds on sugar, and bringing in, what you can do with your diet, what you've done. And I love in the book that you mentioned things like Reiki. I have seen so many Reiki patients over the years, being a practitioner for 25 years. I mean, all of that, breathing, intention, exercise, taking supplements, all those things can make a difference, can't they, Brian?
Absolutely. Yes. What we have to do is to find out what works best for us. And that's quite difficult because it's very difficult to find the kind of advice that we need. Very fortunately, I've been supported by 2 very good charities, cancer charities. And I've used kinesiology, I've used acupuncture, and I've also consulted a nutritionist on quite a few occasions. So I feel very benefited from that. But it's this whole business of exploration. Now my sister was a gerontologist in upstate New York, and she ran a conference or ran conferences for doctors. And one of the doctors there said that what was needed with older patients was to start slow and to build up. And I think that's a very wise thing. One of my experiences, I had a very short experience with chemotherapy, which I withdrew from. but I was put on full dose straight away, and it really badly upset my liver. Well, I just wonder, and my oncologist would say this isn't the case, but I just wonder whether I started on a lower dose and built up, whether my system might have learned to cope with the situation. But the other wise words that my dear sister, and she's said many wise words to me over the years, she said that we have to be our own self-advocates. It's no good just leaving it to what the doctors tell us. I do trust my doctors, but only to a certain point. And I do question my doctors. And what I said in my book, I said, we do actually have to ask pertinent questions, and some impertinent questions as well. And I know some of those upset the doctors because they don't like to be thought that they're being questioned, their expertise being questioned. But sometimes it needs to happen. And we need to know why they're doing it and what the outcome is going to be. So I'm a great advocate of self-advocacy and finding out for ourselves, doing our own research. We don't have to be obsessive about it, but at least having some idea of what's going on and not just leaving it to the so-called experts. Because you know the definition of an expert, don't you?
No, what is it?
Well, an X is an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure, so don't trust an expert.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I learned that when I was a careers advisor. Yeah, I learned that when I was a careers advisor, and very quickly realized that being an expert was not a good thing for me. It was no good telling people stuff.
Yes.
What my role was as a careers advisor was to be able to help people to talk to themselves about themselves. And that's what I'd like my doctors to be doing, to help have a conversation with me. And I've gradually moved a little in that kind of direction, because what I find is that my oncologist was particularly upset because he wasn't treating me for anything. He really felt he ought to be putting stuff inside me and fixing me. And, you know, so if I'm not treating you with anything, what's my role here? And I said, you're part of a team. Look, I've got a kinesiologist, I've got an acupuncturist, I've got a nutritionist, I've got a physiotherapist, I've got all sorts of books that I've got. And I'm doing my research, and I'm on the Macmillan Cancer Forum, and I'm finding out about things. And your role here is to see what's going on. You're the referee. You're the guy who can tell me whether I'm off play or whatever. And so therefore, what I need you to do is to keep an eye so that you can inform the rest of the team about what we're doing and put in treatment if you need to. I'm now talking to him about having some radiotherapy because of a big lumps that's appeared on the back of my head. I've got 6 other locations now of cancers in my body, and they're still having very little effect on me. They're very slow growing, and I'm still busy doing things. So it's and I don't know why. I can't really give. All I can say is that practicing my meds, I think, has probably been helpful over the time. But I wouldn't like to say, "Oh, stick to this regimen and you'll be all right." I don't know. It may not be all right for you. Just try it.
I love your
try things and try them for a long time.
Yes, yes. Instead of, this one door, there's many doors we can open and pull into our life to help with that, isn't there?
That's right.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yes, because you see, a lot of people go on diet or exercise or mindfulness or whatever. We need all of them. And what I came up with was the idea of meds. And meds stands for mind, exercise, diet, and support. And we need all 4 aspects of that. We need a holistic approach. And all we get from most of our doctors is a very narrow paradigmatic approach, which is just treating the material side of the body and not looking at other aspects of what's going on. So I think that we have to be able to follow through a whole wide platform of areas and just see what happens. And we have to wait. The other thing there, Paula, is that I've observed that when we start this sort of thing, what we call the allopathic medicine of traditional medicine happens very quickly, very often. And you get reactions very quickly, and of course we also get lots of side effects, and that's because really what we're doing is forcing the body to do things that it's not normal for it to do. And what the body does is do things a lot more slowly than traditional medicine does. But it can be very effective because it can reduce the number of symptoms that we have. It can reduce the effects of side effects of our treatments that we may be undergoing at the same time. But it takes a long time. I took a particular medication starting last August, and it was in order to help reduce the prostate. Well, that didn't happen for 2 or 3 months, and then suddenly it started to kick in. And instead of getting up and pee every 3 or 4 times a night and thinking to myself, now this is why the Scots call it the wee hours, I would be getting up just once a night. But it took months before the body adjusted to it and got used to the idea. So there are lots of ways in which we can do that, but we have to be very patient, and we have to watch our bodies, and we have to listen to our bodies, because sometimes our bodies will be telling us things that we don't hear with our reasoning minds. We get a sense that this is right or this is wrong, and we need to really listen inwardly. And that's quite difficult because the mind gets in the way all the time. The body knows all about it. The body knows what to do. The mind just gets in the way.
Oh my gosh, Brian, all these amazing tidbits and words that we can really think about and make a difference in our lives. That's huge. And there is so many things we can add into it. And I love your point that if you begin doing something, give it a little time. That, because I could see how you could easily say, oh, well, that's not making a difference, I'm going to stop. That's a very good point.
Yes, as long as it's not getting a negative reaction, stick with it for a while. Just see what happens. Wait.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And then, it is great that we can, as an individual, do a big part in our own healing, listening to our body, opening up, researching the different things that we can add in to help us heal and be healthier. That's an incredible thing to know, Brian. Oh gosh. Well, we have a few minutes left in the show. What last message do you want to give everyone today, Brian?
Well, my big message, I think, now is the realization that we come from a warrior culture. And our warrior culture wants to fix things. It wants to sort things. It wants to organize things. It wants things to be put into place. And that's not nature's way. It's the nature of nature to nurture. And nature heals by nurturing. It doesn't heal by forcing. Sometimes it has to dispose of bits and pieces, the cells that have gone wrong, etc. And it's doing that all the time. But that's not a process of aggression, and it's not malicious. It's to do with nurture. And if we view our treatment as a process of nurture and of care and of loving kindness, rather than a war against cancer, then our whole attitude towards our treatment and the way that we live and the way that we accept the presence of these cancerous cells inside of us changes dramatically. We're no longer in a battle against me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So what would you say to someone that is struggling with that right now? What is a step they can do to kind of get out of that mindset and allow that? Any suggestion?
Well, the first thing is that being able to identify what the problem is half the solution to the problem. And half the solution to the problem is waking up to the fact that we are driven by our own self-perception, our own sense of self. Some people call it ego. We are driven to lots of things going on in our lives, lots of decisions we make as a result of the influences that we've been exposed to all our lives. And overcoming that is a big job. But recognizing, first of all, that I'm not who I think I am. I am not my thoughts. I'm not my worries. I'm not my fears. There's a deeper me inside which understands this. And the real key to me is silence. We have to spend time in solitude and silence. Most of us hate that. That's why we bought mobile phones, so we can fill in all the blanks. So there's no blanks in our lives anymore. Switch your phone off. Have a day without the electronics and just sit and listen. Be quiet. Listen to the inner self. Listen to the inner body. And in that way, gradually, you find yourself relaxing. You find the defenses beginning to relax and lay down. And you start to hear a different voice from within you. And it's a voice of love. Because that's what life is. Life is love.
Yes. Oh, Brian, thank you so much. Thank you for all the people that you help, your support, your volunteers. Thank you for writing this fantastic book. I am just thrilled and honored to have met you today and so happy to share you with my audiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. It's been good to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Love, hugs, and blessings, everyone.